I woke up to the sound of my roommate coughing uncontrollably. I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and rolled out of bed, making my way to his side of the dorm room. He was curled up on his bed, shivering despite the blankets piled on top of him. "Danny, are you okay?" I asked, placing a hand on his forehead. He was burning up. "I don't know," he croaked. "I don't feel like myself. I've been having strange thoughts. It's making my head hurt." I felt a knot form in my stomach. This didn't sound good. We were in a small college town, and all the other students had gone home for the holiday break. The college was almost deserted except for a few staff, and a winter storm was raging outside, making it impossible to leave. We were stranded. I decided to call the campus nurse, but the phone lines were down. I looked back at Danny, who was now thrashing around in his bed, muttering incoherently. He looked like he was in pain, but I didn't know what to do. I had heard stories of people being possessed by spirits, and the thought crossed my mind that maybe something supernatural was going on. But it also could be something psychological, and I had no way of knowing. I felt a sense of dread wash over me as I realized that I was the only one who could help him, and I had no idea what to do. I tried to talk to him, to reason with him, but he didn't respond. He was in his own world, consumed by whatever was happening inside of him. I felt helpless, watching him suffer and not knowing what to do. I remembered a book I had read about exorcisms, and I quickly went to grab it. I had no idea if it would help, but it was worth a try. I flipped through the pages, trying to find something that would help me understand what was happening to Danny. As I read, I realized that there were certain rituals and incantations in a foreign language that were said to banish spirits and evil entities. I had no idea if this would work, but I had to try something. I began to recite the words from the book, trying to banish whatever was inside Danny. At first, nothing happened, but as I continued, I saw a change in him. His thrashing stopped and he began to speak in a language I didn't understand. It was low and guttural, and it sent chills down my spine. But then, suddenly, it stopped. Danny's eyes shot open and he looked at me, confused. "What happened?" he asked, looking around the room. "Why am I in our dorm room?" I took a deep breath, relieved that it seemed to have worked. "You were possessed," I told him. "I did an exorcism to get rid of whatever it was that was inside you." He looked at me incredulously. "Are you serious?" "That's insane," he said, but he didn't seem to be in pain anymore. I nodded. "I'm serious. I don't know what else it could have been." He shook his head, still in disbelief. "I have no memory of it," he said, looking around the room again. "It doesn't matter now, you're safe and that's what matters," I replied, patting his shoulder in a reassuring way. But just as I felt relieved, there was a knock on the door. It was campus security, asking if everything was all right and if we needed any help. I froze. How had they known something was happening in our room? I quickly came up with a cover story, telling them that Danny had just been really sick and I was trying to take care of him. They seemed skeptical but didn't press the issue and eventually left. Danny and I looked at each other in shock. "How did they know?" he asked. I shook my head. "I don't know. It's almost like they were expecting something to happen." We decided it would be best if we didn't talk about it anymore and just tried to forget the whole incident. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was almost like the possessed episode wasn't the end of it. Days passed and Danny seemed to have fully recovered and was acting normal again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. It was almost as if someone or something was still keeping an eye on us. One night, as I was about to fall asleep, I heard a scratching noise at the window. I got up to investigate, and to my horror, I saw a figure standing outside, shrouded in darkness. It was impossible to make out any features, but I could feel its eyes on me. I woke Danny up and we quickly locked the window and doors. We huddled in the corner of the room, too scared to move or speak. Eventually, the figure left and we didn't hear or see anything else that night. But the fear stayed with me. It was clear that whatever had possessed Danny before was still after us. We decided to leave the college as soon as possible, and the next morning, we packed up our things and set off. As we were leaving town, we saw that the storm had stopped and the sun was shining. It was as if the darkness was finally lifting. On the journey back home, Danny and I talked about what had happened, and we realized that we couldn't explain it. We knew it was something supernatural, and we just had to accept that. We got out of the car at a desolate gas station along an empty road. Danny went to put gas in the car as I walked inside the convenience store. I looked around for snacks and soda and grabbed a few things. I walked to the counter and looked around for the clerk. No one was there. "Hello," I called out, but I got no response. There was a room behind the counter with an open door. I tried to see if anyone was inside. "Anyone back there?" I called out. Still nothing. I walked behind the counter and looked through the door. It was a small room with merchandise to stock the counter, but no clerk. In the back of the store, there was a larger stockroom for all the other merchandise. Maybe he was in there, so I opened the door to check, but no one was there. The bathroom was empty too. I left the junk food on the counter and stepped outside. I walked around the building thinking the clerk was smoking in the back. I was frustrated to see no one there. I didn't see Danny pumping gas, so I thought he was in the car. I walked up to it and bent down, expecting to see him sitting in the driver's seat. The car was empty. The stretch of road we were on was flat and straight as an arrow for miles both ways. It would be easy to spot someone walking. I looked up and down the road, but didn't see him. I yelled out his name and waited. Nothing. I was alone. I went back inside the store and grabbed the food and placed $2 on the counter. There was a phone next to the register. I picked it up to call my parents, but the line was silent. I tried the payphone outside, dropping in a dime. It was dead as the one inside. I hopped in my car and tore open a bag of red licorice, chewing it to calm my nerves. I drove the car a few miles back in the direction of the college in case Danny had somehow become a world-class sprinter and ran off out of my view. When I didn't see him, I turned back towards the gas station. I stopped and walked around the area just to be sure, but neither the clerk nor Danny were there. I got back in my car and continued to drive down the road in the direction away from town. I felt guilty for leaving Danny behind, but I had to find a police station to report him and the clerk missing. Something happened to them, and if I didn't leave that gas station, it was going to happen to me too. I drove and drove for a couple hours, but that damn road kept going straight forever. There was no end to it. By this time, I was running low on gas and patience. I turned the car around, thinking maybe I missed an intersection or something. I just wanted to get off that road and onto another. I didn't care where it went. After driving a few miles back, I saw a building in the distance. I don't know how I missed it before, but I was so relieved. As I got closer, it was clear it was a gas station. Just what I needed. I could call the cops, fill up, and get some food. But as I got closer, my heart sank when I realized it was the same gas station I left 2 hours ago. How could that be possible? Was I losing my mind? I pulled up and filled the car with gas in case I had to make a quick getaway for whatever reason. I walked inside the store and looked around. It was as empty and lifeless as before. On the counter were the $2 I had left. If the clerk had come back, that money would have been in the register. I was hoping not to see it, but there it was. As a college student, I didn't have much money, so I felt guilty stockpiling my car with food and other necessities. Maybe I was paranoid, but the world had become unreliable, so I wasn't taking any chances. I had to be prepared for anything. I didn't want to continue driving down that godforsaken road, so I headed back towards town. The clouds became darker, and before I knew it, I was back in the snowstorm. I was happy to see the college exit. It was something different, but I decided to pass it. I wasn't going back to those empty buildings. My plan was to find someone in town who could help me out. The next exit should have only been a half mile, but 30 minutes into the drive, there was nothing but straight snowy road that went on forever. I pulled over onto the side of the road and relieved myself. I had been so preoccupied, I had neglected peeing. After pulling up my zipper, I walked back towards the car. That's when I heard the crunch of footsteps in the snow behind me. I turned and froze. Standing in front of me was a 9-foot man with its arms outstretched. He, or they, had 2 heads and one of them I recognized. It was Danny. The other head had a white and red hat that read Harper's Gas. It was obviously the gas station clerk. It took a step towards me. Danny's head then spoke. "Help me." I couldn't say a word. If I hadn't relieved myself earlier, I would have peed my pants. The clerk's head then spoke. "Help us. We need one more." One more of what? I thought. The 2-headed man monster raised his hand towards my head. He was only a couple yards away. That's when I realized what they wanted. I turned back towards the car, ready to run, but before I could take a step, I was yanked back by my collar. A massive hand grabbed my head. 3 of its fingers covered my eyes, and its thumb and pinky finger covered my ears. The monster lifted me off the ground with its incredible strength. It grabbed my neck with the other hand and pulled in opposite directions. The pain was unbelievable. I tried to scream, but before I could, I blacked out. When I woke up, my vision was blurry. I was lying on my back on something soft. In the corner of my eye, I saw a figure standing chanting something unrecognizable. He walked closer. I was terrified and afraid if I blinked my eyes and cleared my vision, I would see the monster who attacked me. Seeing it would make it real. I whimpered and pleaded with the figure to not hurt me. I told him I would do anything. I tried bargaining and said I would find others for him. As many as he wanted. I could lure them into the Forever Road so he could join with them. Anything, just please don't tear my head off. The blurry figure stood there silently, just staring. I pleaded again. "You agree? Please say you agree." The figure stood over me and then bent down. He said, "What am I agreeing to?" It was Danny's voice. I blinked a few times to clear my vision and saw his face a foot away from mine. I turned my head and saw his body. It was just Danny. I looked around and realized I was back in my dorm room. "You were possessed by something," he said. I stared at him incredulously and asked, "I don't understand. How did I get here, Danny?" He explained I had been running a temperature and talking in my sleep in a strange language. Sometimes I would wake up and call out for him, and sometimes I would mutter to myself. He thought I was possessed. Fortunately, he found my book on exorcism and chanted the incantations, which seemed to work because I was coherent again. "Did you call the nurse?" I asked. Danny sat on the edge of the bed. "I tried, but the phone lines are dead because of this snowstorm. Everyone's gone home, so it's just me and you in this building." Danny looked concerned. "Do you remember anything?" he asked. It was in the back of my mind, but I couldn't access those memories. I felt like something was blocking me. I shook my head. I couldn't remember. After a few days of strange occurrences, we decided to leave the college and drive out of town. We didn't feel safe staying inside the college. Something was wrong, and it wasn't our imaginations. We packed up and drove off. We were so relieved once we got a few miles out of town, with the snowstorm behind us. It seemed to be only affecting the town and college. It was the strangest thing. It was going to be a long drive, so we decided to stock up on some junk food and soda. Along the way there was a gas station. It was called Harper's Gas. We pulled over and told Danny I'd fill the tank. He could buy the food and soda. After refueling the car, I headed towards the store to make sure Danny got some red licorice. That's when I saw him. The store clerk was lying on top of the roof. All I could see was his head, hat, and giant hands. Before I could say anything, he stood up. My jaw dropped. I stepped back, and just as I was about to yell out to Danny, the man had jumped in the air like a rocket. I stumbled and turned, but he was on me. In that instant, I knew it was over for me and Danny.